Hey folks, and welcome to the MassLive offices where we are currently reeling from the Boston Celtics, breaking our hearts and trading Avery Bradley. Tom, why did the Celtics do it?
Well, the Celtics were always most likely to trade Avery. Well, let's start at the beginning. They traded Avery Bradley because they signed Gordon Hayward. That's the most simple explanation. Signed Gordon Hayward. He was going to get a max deal. One of Bradley, Smart, or Crowder was going to have to go, and it always made the most sense to trade Avery Bradley. As painful as that's going to be for Celtics fans, just the fact that he was an unrestricted free agent next season, he was going to get paid. Everybody knows about Avery Bradley. That's kind of the thing with this is he was probably arguably the best two-way player on the Celtics last season. Great defender, really good shooter. He kind of learned to take people off the dribble. Really, really talented player both ways. That was going to get him really, really paid. The Celtics are going to have to pay Isaiah Thomas. They're going to have to pay Gordon Hayward. They're already paying Gordon Hayward. They're going to have to pay Al Horford for 3 more years. So that was just kind of the price of doing business. It's the first really painful casualty for Celtics fans of the rebuild as Danny Ainge kind of tries to look to build a contender again.
Was Avery Bradley the guy that had apparent value for other teams more than, say, Marcus Smart? Like, the Celtics love Marcus Smart and they love Jay Crowder, but it's not as sexy as a sell.
Right. He was actually kind of the midway point. Smart was the least valuable to other teams, even though Smart might be more valuable than Bradley defensively to the Celtics specifically because they have to build around Isaiah Thomas. Smart can just do more than Bradley can. Bradley's unbelievable on ball. Smart's better off the ball. He's better at containing multiple positions. I mean, the guy guarded Kristaps Porzingis last year. Like, he can do literally everything. Not as well on ball as Avery can, but he's very, very, very valuable. Crowder, meanwhile, you can look at it 2 ways. Crowder can either stick with the team, they can play a lot of small ball lineups, put Hayward and then Crowder at the small ball 4 with Horford at the center, which is a lineup that will really struggle to rebound still, but it's a very good lineup. Or Crowder has more trade value than Bradley has, even though Bradley is the better player, because Bradley is going to need to get possibly a max contract or something close to it next offseason. Meanwhile, Crowder is signed through 2020 on a deal that is going to pay him less than $8 million a year. In 2020, Crowder's last year of that deal, Jason Tatum on a rookie scale deal is going to be making more than he is. So his contract is incredibly valuable. If the Celtics want to go out and make a trade, they can do that now. They can trade him, get a rebounder, get a big man who can block shots. They can do something like that, or they can just keep him, and they can run these really versatile, rebounding challenged, but very, very good defensive lineups out there.
No, the big reason they had to make the trade was because they needed to shed salary. Because Jay Crowder's deal was so good, would it have been hard to find even a half decent return to shed the money from what was he make $5-6 million?
7, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been really hard, and especially if you trade Crowder first. This is kind of an order of operations thing. It would have been really hard. I mean, whatever the Jazz were going to offer as part of that reported sign and trade was not going to be good, and that's what we said. That's what I've been pounding on my Twitter account. I'm just obnoxious about it at this point. How bad that deal would have been. It would have been something that just didn't even make sense. And that was, this deal is not about Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris is a fine player, but it's not about him. It's about clearing the space for Hayward, and it's about maintaining that little bit of extra trade value in Crowder if they decide to trade him. So yeah, it would have been hard to find real value for him. He's really cheap. Like you kind of said, that the salary matching is going to be difficult as well. But there are players available that you could potentially get for Crowder, and that's going to be the interesting next step. Is do they decide to keep him? Do they decide to run a ton of small ball, or do they decide to try to find one of these cheap guys that they can exchange for him?
Yeah, because they have with Hayward there, they have 4 real valuable wings, and the front court is dead.
Yeah.
They have Marcus Morris now from the Avery Bradley trade. What does he bring?
He is a versatile player. He's kind of a combo forward, so yet another one of those. He wasn't a great rebounder last season, which is exactly what they need. They need a rebounder really badly, and he does not do that. It's worth wondering whether a lot of those rebounds were gobbled up by Andre Drummond, who was one of the biggest rebounders in the league last season. Incredible defensive rebounding percentage, but that also takes some away from his teammates. So it might have just been a necessity thing. He might be a better rebounder, but he's very tough. He really adds to the Celtics kind of ethos of getting guys who want to beat up the nerds. He's just a really, big, strong dude. I don't know that he's going to get much playing time, and I would be very surprised if he did. The Celtics need to get Tatum and Brown playing time before they try to get Morris out there, unless they decide to trade Crowder for something. But he's not better than Jay Crowder. He's not I don't really see him as like a real contributor to next season. I think to the Celtics, he's some value in return for Bradley, and potentially somebody who can be, maybe dealt down the road, maybe somebody who could be thrown into another deal, with his small salary, but certainly, there's salary there. So I think that's more what they're looking at. I don't think they're looking at him as somebody who's really going to contribute next season.
You said that the Celtics are in dire need of a rebounder. What are kind of some sort of dream scenarios for the team to, if they were going to get one of those guys, be it through a trade of Crowder or maybe the mid-level exception, what's out there?
Well, the Celtics aren't going to be paying the tax this season, so they don't actually get to use their mid-level. But they do have their room exception, which is where they could try to sign Dewayne Dedmon. And I think that's their absolute ideal scenario. If they can try to get him, it's going to be tough because he probably will get paid. If he wants to be, he could go to a bad team and get paid. But if he wants to get a lot of exposure, and the Celtics can also offer him potentially a starting role. You could say to Dedmon, look, we're going to slot you in next to Horford. We're going to have you with Hayward and all these other guys who are really talented. They could even play Hayward at the 2, because Stevens yesterday even said he doesn't see positions anymore. He sees ball handler, wing, and big. You can say to Dedmon, look, you and Horford are going to be bigs. We're going to throw you out there. We're going to have these other wings around you. Everybody can shoot, and you're going to be really, really featured on offense. And maybe that gets him to take something like the room exception. Other names, it's just really tough to tell. It's tough to tell who's going to be interested in Crowder. It's tough to tell who is going to match salaries, how they're going to work all that out. But Crowder's really valuable, and if they decide to trade him for a big man, you can expect that the value they're going to be getting back is a lot better than Dewayne Dedmon, because Crowder is just that valuable, that versatile, that contract is that ridiculous. Somebody's going to be getting a very good player if they trade for Jay Crowder, and they're going to have to give up good value in return, because now the Celtics can just stand pat. They have that leverage, which is super, super critical for them.
Now, in Avery Bradley, they lost their premier on-ball defender, which was the guy that would throw at a guy like Kyrie Irving, and Jay Crowder is the kind of the guy that would stick on a guy like LeBron or like a bigger forward. If they trade both those guys, what do they do defensively
That's a really good question, especially when you look at Cleveland in particular. Cleveland, it's funny because signing Hayward is almost a gamble that LeBron does leave Cleveland next season, because if he leaves, they automatically take the role as like the favorite in the Eastern Conference, and there's a real chance that they go to the finals. If he doesn't leave, if Cleveland manages to continue running this team back, it's until LeBron gets old that they're really going to be struggling with Cleveland, because like you said, Bradley was so valuable against Kyrie Irving, and the Crowder. Crowder can't even really guard LeBron. That's kind of the thing.
Can anyone guard LeBron?
Nobody can, and that's the thing, right? It's like, do you waste your time trying to find somebody? You waste your money. The Raptors last year brought in PJ Tucker, and everybody was like, oh, they got their LeBron stopper. And of course LeBron lit him up, because LeBron is much, much better than PJ Tucker. That's just the thing. Like, LeBron is that much better than everybody else that I'm not sure it matters too much to the Celtics. Crowder is a very good player. He competes. He plays extremely hard. He's very strong. I'm not sure LeBron is a big focus for them in that way, in just that you can't find anybody who can stop him. Maybe you try to find a better way to stop him as a team, which maybe that means, getting a big who can contain the rim a little bit better. Maybe you hope to have a more switchable lineup. That would be the kind of thing they're looking at, as opposed to somebody who just individually can stay in front of LeBron, because nobody can, and especially Crowder. We saw that in the Eastern Conference Finals. LeBron went right by Crowder anytime he wanted to, because he's just that kind of athlete.
And something we talked about before we went on is that this is kind of one of the timelines the Celtics cut on, the trade down to get Jason Tatum and go after Gordon Hayward timeline. The other one was the idea that they stick with Markelle Fultz, and the big change that would have made was that, as you mentioned, if the Celtics wanted to trade Fultz, it really opens up, acquire Fultz, it opens up the idea that the most logical player, if you wanted to trade away and get Gordon Hayward, would be Isaiah Thomas.
Correct. That's a fascinating timeline, and it's going to be something that's really debated. This is the timeline that you go on if you are planning to throw a Brinks truck at Isaiah Thomas next season, and obviously they are. They want to keep him, and he'll want to sign. He'll want to be with this team who gave him this chance, and the city that just embraced him. He's
and the team that didn't trade him to acquire Markelle Fultz.
Correct. So he's going to want to be on this Celtics team. That is pretty clear. He's here for the future. You built around that. The thing is, had you drafted Fultz and you just said, all right, look, we're going to take the best player available, we're not going to mess around, we're not going to try to trade down, we're not going to mess with that, then you have an opportunity to build around a big, defensive-minded lineup. Fultz next to Bradley would have been really, really good because Fultz is 6'4" with long arms, like super talented player. Bradley is an unbelievable on-ball defender who wouldn't need to help as much if he was next to somebody like Fultz. Down the road, Fultz is going to be a bad defender next year. He's a rookie. That is what it is. But down the road, Bradley wouldn't have needed to help as much. He could have contained people, and Fultz could have just been another guy. You wouldn't have to hide him the way you have to hide Isaiah Thomas. So that's a really fascinating timeline to go down because on that route, you're really building more for the future, but even your present-day team is pretty darn good. I'm not sure which is a better timeline. This is a really good one. Look, Isaiah Thomas is a star. Everybody who's doubting him at this point, like, it's just why are you still doing this? He put up 30 points a game last year. Like, he's a really, really good player on the offensive end. I'm not sure which way. I'm not sure which one gets them closer to contention. This is the way that they kind of have a very good team right now with a chance to go to the finals and a very good team in the future with young guys coming in. This is the route they've decided to take. It makes a lot of sense. It's going to lead to two really intriguing timelines for this team, and it's going to extend their window of being very good for a very long time. The question is whether they actually get to that great team that is a finals championship contender. I don't think they're there yet. And trading Bradley probably takes them a step down from that. But they're still going to be really, really good next season.
Now, on this current timeline, they added all these pieces, and as you said, they're good now, and they're going to be good down the road. How important is it that they didn't give up either of their prize picks, the 2018 Nets pick, or the new pick, in exchange for a Jimmy Butler, or a Paul George rental?
Completely crucial. If they were hoping to win a championship this season, they were going to need to add all kinds of talent that would have been really hard to keep, and they would have been really gambling. I mean, it sounds like it would have cost them, to really lock in that Paul George trade before they signed Hayward, it would have probably cost them, that Lakers pick that's going to be 2 through 5 protected, and the Lakers look bad, especially in comparison to the rest of the Western Conference, so that definitely might convey. Or it probably would have cost them, the Brooklyn pick, and that's going to be another really good pick. The Brooklyn Nets are going to be terrible this season. So, in terms of, in terms of keeping that timeline available, this was the way they had to go. Was trading Bradley, was avoiding giving him that max contract next season. There just really wasn't another option, and this is a great option. To be clear, I mean, Michael Porter Jr. is going to be a star. Luka Doncic is going to be a star. Mo Bamba is going to be a star. All these guys in the 2018 draft, they're super high on, and they should be. That draft, especially at the top, is loaded, and they have 2 picks that look like they're going to be at the top in that loaded draft. So that's where they're at right now. It makes a lot of sense. It really seems like the 2 paths that they're trying to take at the same time are really clearing up, and they should be able to kind of straddle that line.
All right, so what do you think the next move is for them?
I think the absolute next move is they finally announce Gordon Hayward. He comes in, has his press conference. It'll be really interesting to ask him some questions at that press conference. It'll be fascinating to ask him what attracted him to this roster. I think that will be... The Jay Crowder thing is going to be fascinating because Crowder was very upset last season when Celtics fans were cheering for Hayward. He just did not like that one bit. He found it disrespectful, which it's hard to blame him. I mean, he's kind of given a lot to this franchise. So it'll be really interesting to see what Hayward says attracted him to this roster. If he says anything about the defensive versatility, the way that they can run out all these different lineups, that might be somewhat of an indication that he wants Crowder to stick around. If he says playing with Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford, if he says, all these young guys and the future of the team, I don't want to like put words in his mouth by any means, but maybe that means that, he doesn't think that they need to keep Crowder. Maybe, there's like some damage done there. I think Hayward is an adult. I think Crowder's an adult. I think that they will both, if the Celtics decide to play both of them together, it will be fine. The locker room will be absolutely fine. But it'll be really interesting to watch. That, to me, is going to be the most interesting question at Hayward's press conference is kind of what made you decide to sign? What finally convinced you that this was the place you wanted to be?
All right, so we will have more on Hayward when he actually signs later on this week, and we'll figure out what the heck the Celtics do from here. In the meantime, follow along Tom Westerholm and Jay King as they try to figure out how the Celtics are going to just really figure all this huge offseason mess out, and then finally play basketball at some point this year.
I can't wait for that.
Oh, yeah. Summer's starting up, preseason at some point, and at some point we'll actually see this team play basketball and Gordon Hayward play. Until then, all right, thanks for tuning in, folks, and stay tuned for more coverage down the road.